Hi everyone. Welcome to our Homeopathy for Infants and Children presentation. As you can see, I've had them, infants that turn into children and that are now adults. So I've had the chance to use homeopathy for not just my children as they went through infancy, childhood, teenage, now adults, but for the past 26 years, I've had the opportunity to use homeopathy and to guide families coming to me in using homeopathic remedies for their children. So I'm going to share some of my insights in this presentation that I have gathered over the past 26 plus years. My standard disclaimer. Thank you for your interest in homeopathy. Welcome to our friends and family homeopathic community. I have been practicing homeopathy since 1994. Special love for homeopathy. I strive to empower, educate, and guide families that are looking to incorporate safe and effective, over the counter, non prescription homeopathic remedies in their well care routine. All the materials provided at this presentation are for educational purposes only, not intended as a substitute for a physician's consultation. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. And always consult a qualified physician prior to taking any remedies, medications, or supplements. So, a little bit about me. I have a bachelor's degree in homeopathy from Mumbai University in India, and I'm both certified by the Council for Homeopathic Certification as a CCH, which is a certified classical homeopath, registered with NASH, which is the North American Society of Homeopaths. I'm a lifetime member of the National Center for Homeopathy. I am a homeopath, not an MD, and therefore families must retain services of a primary care physician for appropriate evaluations, diagnostics, checkups, and referrals to specialists if needed. My relationship with the families that come to me for guidance is that of an educator, not of a prescriber, and is their choice to use or not use the information I give. And as with anything that you use for yourself, your family, you must research and find answers to all your queries. Never disregard medical advice or delay seeking such advice. So, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to go over the most commonly used over the counter non prescription homeopathic remedies for symptoms from allergies, sinus infections, rashes, colds, coughs, fevers, sore throats, viral illnesses, colic, constipation, gas, tummy aches, teething, ear infections, as well as sleep issues. So here is a picture with Dr. Lupusni. She practices here in Milford, Connecticut, and it's been amazing knowing her, meeting her, and bringing homeopathy to her families. And I am so grateful for this opportunity to be able to practice what I've learned over the years and to see the effects of the remedies on kids. And children respond so beautifully to remedies because they have this clean palate. They're not on medications for chronic conditions. So if we give them remedies at the onset of symptoms, it really helps shorten illnesses and nip them in the bud. So I have made a separate video on the most frequently asked questions on homeopathy. So you can find the link below, which is the FAQs. But I'll just go over some very basics if you just landed at this video and haven't seen that video yet, which is on the FAQs. So what is homeopathy? It's a holistic system of medicine that safely and effectively treats not just everyday ailments, but chronic and acute symptoms of the mind and body by stimulating the body's own healing, self-healing abilities. The system of medicine is over 200 years old and it was founded by German physician Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. And it's based on the law of similars, which means that a remedy that produces symptoms in a healthy person can also cure those same symptoms when manifested by a person in disease state. So are homeopathic remedies safe? Yes, they are safe, they're inexpensive, they're non-toxic, and they work. They can be administered to babies, pregnant women, elderly, as well as pets under the supervision of a qualified homeopath. There are no side effects when a carefully chosen remedy is administered in the right potency and the right dosage. Remedies cost $5 to $10 each, and they're easily available over the counter at most health food stores like Whole Foods, Mrs. Green's, the Vitamin Shop, and they can also be ordered online. You can invest in a basic remedy kit or build as you go based on your family's needs. How should homeopathic remedies be administered? They're best taken orally by mouth, and they should be taken on a clean mouth. Any food or drink should be avoided for at least 15 minutes before and after taking the remedy. It's all right to drink water before you take the remedy, but avoid even water for 15 minutes after you've taken the remedy. And it's recommended this gap be increased to half an hour before and after the remedy if tea, coffee, alcohol, mint, garlic, onion, or any other strong substances have been consumed. The remedy will not be absorbed if your mouth tastes of mint, toothpaste, candy, strongly flavored sweets, or highly seasoned food. Just rinse out your mouth thoroughly with water before giving the remedy. If supposing you've given the remedy, this happens with children all the time that they find something and they just like put it in their mouth. No big deal. If they eat something within the 15 minutes of your having given the remedy, just give them water to drink and then wait 5-10 minutes and then just repeat that dose. So it's that simple. So not a big deal if they happen to eat something within the 15 minutes of having taken the remedy. So this is one of my cutie pie patients. I'm going to show you how easy it is to give remedies to babies because they are sweet to taste. Children love to take the remedies and so easy to give it to them. So enjoy.
There you go. Yay!
What is the right dose and what is the right potency? So, chronic diseases are treated with infrequent repetitions of high potency of a deep acting constitutional or state remedy, whereas acute conditions will be treated with frequent repetitions of a low potency. Sensitivity of the individual also plays an important role in the selection of the remedy and potency. The more dilute a potency, the higher it is considered to be energetically. The 30C potency is considered safe to use for infants, children, adults. There are no side effects if a carefully chosen remedy is administered in the right potency and the right dose. One tiny pill is considered as one dose, but the whole vial or the whole bottle of 70 to 80 pellets, if it's taken at one time, still considered as one dose or one stimulus. It's the number of times the remedy is given, not the number of pills, that is important. One can start by giving 1 to 3 doses in an acute situation, 5 to 30 minutes apart on that clean neutral mouth, and then decrease the frequency and give a dose every 1 to 3 or every 1 to 4 hours as getting better, tapering to twice a day, once a day, and stopping as symptoms improve. And your homeopath will be able to guide you to the right remedy, potency, and dosage. So it's not like Western medicine or a supplement that you have to take it every 3 hours, every 4 hours. No. In the initial 12 to 24 hours, you may take 6 to 8 doses of the remedy. And as you're getting better, you may need just 2 or 3, or maybe just even one. And then as symptoms start to dissipate, you take less and less of the remedy because what the remedy is doing is giving your body that energetic stimulus to self heal. So you don't have to be on the remedy every 6 to 8 hours or every 4 hours. You may need more doses initially, and then as you're getting better, you're reducing the number of times you take it. So I love Miranda Castro. If you've seen any of my previous presentations, you know she's my queen. And in brief, here are her thoughts on using homeopathic remedies. The beauty of homeopathy is that less is more. More is not more. In fact, more can be a bad thing. If you take too much of a remedy, whether you need it or not, and if you're sensitive in general, And or if you're sensitive to that remedy in particular, you can get symptoms that you did not have. They won't last very long, but they can be a pain, literally. That's how we test our medicines. So we test our remedies by giving a remedy to a healthy individual, and the healthy individual will note down symptoms or sensations or emotions that they experience when taken the remedy, and those are noted down in our Materia Medica, which is our dictionary of symptoms. And then when we see those symptoms in a disease state, we match the symptoms and give that remedy, and that remedy then gives the body the energetic stimulus it needs to self heal. So don't give children unnecessary medications, including homeopathic remedies. And stick with the 30 seed potency unless you are under the guidance of a homeopathic practitioner who has made another recommendation. The 30C is strong but gentle, as a proven track record. There's rarely a need to go higher than 200C in acute situations. There I am with Miranda. I love her, as I said. This is at two of the conferences in the past 6 years that I met her, and I will not leave the conference without getting my picture with her. So uh, I'm looking forward to seeing her in 2020. This year, the conference was not in person, it was online, but I'm hoping that in 2022, I'll get my picture with her again. So these are two books that I recommend. One of them is obviously by Miranda Castro. It's Homeopathy for Pregnancy, Birth, and Your Baby's First Year. It's an amazing book. It's very comprehensive and covers everything that you could possibly experience in that first year of infancy with your baby, and of course, during pregnancy as well as for birth. And then the other book is by Edward Charles. It's the American Institute of Homeopathy's Handbook for Parents. It's a guide to healthy treatment for everything from colds and allergies to ADHD, obesity, and depression. So I'm going to try to cover at least the most basic remedies that you may possibly need. But for more information, these are two books that I highly recommend. So let's start with the absolute basic kit. Um, I have made a video separately just on the basic kit. So I'm going to go over the basic kit very briefly, and you can always go and look at the other video, which goes more deeply into all the remedies that should be in your basic kit. So first remedy in my ABCs, I have two A's, aconite and arnica. Aconite is symptoms that come on suddenly: coughs, colds, runny nose, low-grade fevers, discomfort in the early stages, the first 24 to 36 hours. Um, if you've been out, if a child has been out and did not wear a jacket, did not wear a hat, and then they start having a runny nose, this is the remedy for you. Arnica for all kinds of injuries, bleeding, bruises, stresses, sprains, strains, your fear of being touched due to pain, and it's number one remedy for any trauma or accident. And we use arnica first, and then you follow up with other indicated remedies. Um, if there has been a break in skin or like a bug bite or a puncture wound, then I always recommend Lidum Pal first and then follow it up with arnica. But if it's a closed injury, then we do arnica first and then follow it up with a remedy like Ruta, Bryonia, Rustox, based on what the symptoms are or what the pain is like. The next remedy in the absolute basic kit is the belladonna. The belladonna has, again, symptoms that came on suddenly, violent symptoms, for cramps, for fevers, pain which is shooting and throbbing in nature. I don't like to call it that, but it's the closest we have for anti-inflammatory remedy. And that's why you can call it equivalent to your ibuprofen or Tylenol, and it can be used while you're using another remedy with it to get to the root cause of the illness, but this can be used to get some relief from the pain and the fever if it has come on suddenly. So if the symptoms fit for the fever, the belladonna will take care of the fever pretty much within a few minutes to a few hours. The next remedy for babies and children, chamomilla. It's the remedy for teething. The child is cranky, distressed, one cheek might be red, unbearable teething pains. The stools may become green and loose. Child or baby's worse at night. Needs to be rocked, needs to be carried. The pain from the teething is driving them insane, and in turn, that is driving the parents insane. Um, this is the child that responds very beautifully to chamomilla, and it will calm and soothe the baby down during those teething troubles. So once we've gone through the ABCs of the basic kit, which is your aconite, arnica, belladonna, and chamomilla, the next remedies in the basic kit are Apis mellifica, which is for insect stings, allergic reactions to food, medicine, exposure to toxins. The indications for Apis are if there's hives, redness, swelling, and do keep in mind that some allergies can be life threatening, and so 911 should definitely be called in an event if there is swelling, breathing difficulty, or God forbid, loss of consciousness. But you can give APIS in the meantime. There is a good chance that by the time EMS gets there, you may not need to go. The next remedy in my basic kit that I can do without is Lidam Pal. And I had, as I mentioned a couple of minutes before, that Lidam Pal is the first remedy to consider for any break in skin, punctures, cuts, scrapes, even bug bites. So even if it's a bee sting, I like to do the Lidam Pal first and then follow it up with Apis. It's the remedy for tick bites. So if you've stepped on any pointed object, if you've been vaccinated, so any break in skin, any puncture, the Lidam Pal is the remedy to reach for. The next remedy is Naxwamika. Naxwamika is for any occasional constipation, gas, indigestion from dietary indiscretion. And both the mother and the baby can get this remedy if the breastfeeding mom has eaten spicy food, or if the breastfeeding mom is having indigestion because of which the baby is having it. Both mom and baby can have it and help both of them. Jalsemium. So if you remember, I talked about belladonna for fever. Jalsemium is the remedy for fever. The differentiation is that with belladonna, you feel hot, and whereas with jalsemium, you feel more cold. So fever with chills, consider jalsemium. Jalsemium is also the remedy for any anticipatory anxiety, stress. There's a lot of tiredness, weakness, lethargy, prostration, the heaviness in the head because of which they can't keep their eyes open, pain in the neck muscles. All of these are indications and confirmation for the remedy jalsemium. The last remedy in my basic kit that I can do without is arsenicum alb. Arsenicum alb is my go-to to use as a preventative if there has been exposure to a sick person. It's also the remedy for food poisoning, for diarrhea as well as vomiting. Can give a dose after any throw up or loose motion. So whichever end it's coming out of, you can give a dose right after. So if they throw up, you can have them rinse the mouth out and then give a dose of the arsenicum. The keynote for arsenicum is the extreme lethargy and prostration that they feel after each vomiting or each diarrhea. And then people needing arsenicum will have thirst for small sips of water. Comic relief. This is my son Arnav enjoying his Dippin' Dots ice cream. I remember he had gone with his aunt Renu to Great Adventure in New Jersey, and she got him this Dippin' Dots ice cream, and he calls it his homeopathic ice cream because the little white balls look like the homeopathic remedy. So I'll never forget, my cousin sent me this picture. She's like, look, I'm feeding him ice cream and he's still talking about the homeopathic pills. So now we're going to review remedies for injuries. We already went over Lidam Pal and Arnica. If you remember, I had said if there has been any break in skin, punctures, cuts, scrapes, bug bites, tick bites, consider Lidam Pal first and then follow it up with Arnica. So any injuries, Arnica is the remedy to use first. But if there is break in skin, then use Lidam Pal first and then use Arnica. Now, once you've used the arnica and the ledum in the first few hours, then you're going to follow it up with the other remedies based on the where the injury is and what are the symptoms and sensations. So, if the injury is to a part which is rich in nerves, for example, your fingers, your toes, the mattress of the nails, the palms or soles, if the injury has been from treading on nails, needles, pins, splinters, or if there has been like spinal concussion, convulsions, blow to the head, or such, consider hypericum. Hypericum is a remedy if there have been is there is an injury to parts that are rich in nerves. If there is pain and stiffness with aggravation from any emotion and relief from absolute rest, consider Bryonia alba. So we start with the ledum and the arnica, and then we follow up with these other remedies based on the injury and based on the symptoms and sensations. So if it's areas rich in nerves, consider hypericum. If there is now a lot of stiffness with aggravation from any movement and relief from absolute rest, consider bryonia. The next remedy is rust tox. The rust tox is from spraining or straining, overlifting, particularly from stretching high to like reach things. The pains feel as if they are sprained, as if a muscle or a tendon has been torn from its attachment. With rust tox, it's continued motion that gives relief, where the first movement will be painful. So with bryonia, every movement is painful, but a person needing rust tox, the first movement is painful, but as they keep moving, they feel a little better, and that is the keynote for needing rust tox. Then you have ruta. So the ruta is for bruises and mechanical injuries to bones and periosteum, sprains, dislocations. The other remedy for dislocations or break in the bone fractures is also symphytum. There's the bruised, lame sensation all over, as if from a fall or a blow, and the pains are worse in limbs as well as in joints. If there is any situation where you've dropped hot water, or you've burnt yourself in any way, or your child has burned themselves in any way, the first remedy to consider for burns is Chemtharis. And the last remedy before I move on for injuries is Helleborus niger. It's specific for any head injuries, blow to the head, fall where the baby, where the child or the infant hits the head straight down on the floor, on the wall, or they bang into something. Helleborus niger is the remedy to go for. You start with the Helleborus niger, 1 to 2 doses, and then of course you can follow it up with the other remedies, be it arnica, be it hypericum. But if there has been a head injury, then consider Helleborus niger first. Arnica, arnica, arnica. So first remedy to consider, if there is bumps, bruises, injuries, you cannot go through infancy and childhood without using enough of this remedy. My mom used to say that a child falls at least 108 times before they grow up. So, when my kids were younger and they would keep falling, especially with my daughter, I used to panic a lot. And she would say, no, don't panic. They are very resilient. And this remedy really set my mind at ease. Any falls, any injuries, I had it on hand, and it just made my life a lot easier. And as a first time mom, it took away a lot of the anxiety and the panic. And I think just taking the remedy in the mouth also calms the child down, and it just brings about an amazing outcome. Now we could go over some remedies for colic. We talked about chamomilla. It's indispensable when they're teething. And the indications for when we use it for colic is if the child must be carried and rocked constantly, they have unbearable pain, they're peevish, irritable, oversensitive, driven to despair, and they're quiet only when carried, impatient, demanding, wants this or that, becomes angry when refused or when offered, they'll petulantly reject it. The diarrhea will be green like chopped eggs and spinach. One cheek may be red and the other may be pale white. So think of chamomilla if they are behaving in this way, they probably are having colic and they can't express the reason, they can't like say it verbally. But if you see them being oversensitive and being and wanting to be constantly rocked and be carried and not knowing what they want, that is the state of mind. That state will respond to chamomilla. It has soothed many a fussy baby, including mine. The next remedy to consider for colic is colocynthis. Colocynthis has agonizing pain in the abdomen, causing the infant or the child to bend double, with restlessness, twisting, and turning to obtain relief. And they feel better by heart pressure. So, if they feel better by bending over double, or if they feel better when you are massaging that tummy, there's your indication for colocynthis. But the next remedy, diascoria, has the exact opposite modality. They feel better when they stretch or when they are lying down or sitting. So you will see them arch backwards. So they'll be arching their back and stretching it out and trying to be upright. So the baby or the infant that needs colocynthis will be bent over double and will be bending forward. They feel better with pressure, whereas the baby or the child that needs diascoria is worse bending over, so they will be arching their back and stretching it out and trying to be upright. So it's a clear modality that can help you choose between these two remedies. The remedy that I've put in here for colic ignatia is if the breastfeeding mother is emotionally upset, it is the ignatia that will actually help the baby. And this is something that I've seen all the time, that if I am giving a remedy to the infant or the infant and it's not working, I go to the mother's state of mind and I pick the remedy based on that, and lo behold, it'll help the infant. So moving on from colic to other gastric distress, if the upper abdomen is bloated with constant burping and they feel better with the eructations, and the simplest foods are disagreeing with a lot of accumulation of gas in the stomach and intestines, more bloating in the upper abdomen, consider carbo veg. If it's the lower abdomen which is bloated and the symptoms are worse between 4 to 8 p.m. with the child having has a punny sickly body and is crying all day and sleeping all night, consider lycopodium. If there is bloating and dehydration with loss of fluids, excessive lactation, diarrhea, suppuration, weakness, loss of appetite, or has never been well since, consider China. So these three remedies are again very, very peculiar in their modalities. So if carbo veg is indicated, then there'll be more of burping and eructations because it's the upper abdomen which is bloated. If there is a lot of farting and it's the lower abdomen that is bloated, consider lycopodium and the modality of verse 4 to 8 p.m. But if it's the whole abdomen that seems bloated, where they are burping and farting, consider China. Now, Nux vomica. So we've already talked about Nux vomica in the basic kit. This person who needs it is very sensitive to spices and other irritants in the mom's diet, and there may be irritability, constipation. So if the mother is not eating well, is eating spicy or very highly seasoned or irritating foods, it'll affect the baby, and the baby may get constipated, irritable, and may have indigestion. The last remedy for that is on this list is jalapa. Here, the child seems totally fine all day, but screams and is restless all night. Then how would you differentiate between jalapa and any of the other remedies for colic or for gastric distress? The baby that needs jalapa has a sour smell, a very distinct sour smell from the body. And that usually is my clincher for giving jalapa. Couple of other remedies for gastric issues, arsenicum alb, we've gone over that, a review again. It's for diarrhea, vomiting. Give a dose after any loose motion or throw up. There's extreme lethargy and prostration after each motion. And the thirst is for very small sips of water. So they're drinking again and again, but a couple of uh, just small sips, or just a couple of drops, and then they're done. And then they want some of it again, and then they're done. And I had shared this in my another presentation where I had a um, young toddler who wanted to suck on ice. So he was sucking on ice and then putting it down, sucking on ice and putting it down. And to me, that translated into thirst for small sips of water. And the child responded very well to arsenic command. The next remedy is podophyllum. The podophyllum diarrhea is profuse, watery, sputtering, explosive, but it's completely painless. So it's more for like the summer diarrhea. And the infant or the child seems totally fine after having passed the motion. So they go, then you hear all these explosions from the bathroom or in the diaper when they're going, but they seem totally fine right after. So if they need arsenicum, you will see that extreme prostration and lethargy right after the motion, whereas with podophyllum, they seem to be completely fine. They're ready to eat again, they're playing again, they seem completely fine. The next remedy to consider for diarrhea is Merck salt. Again, very peculiar keynotes which will point you or lead you to Merck salt. One, there's a foul smell, they have bad breath. So remember with Jalapa, it was a sour smell to the whole body. But here it's the breath. Like as soon as you come close to them, you can smell the foul breath. There's a lot of drooling and a lot of perspiration with weakness. And the diarrhea may have mucus and or blood. The next remedy to consider is Veratrum Al. Again, the keynote for Veratrum Al, which differentiates it from arsenicum or podophyllum or Merck, is the cold, clammy skin and the exhaustion and the icy coldness. So if you touch their face, tip of nose, feet, legs, hands, arms, abdomen, they feel icy cold. So there is the diarrhea and the vomiting with a lot of nausea and exhaustion, but the keynote is that they will be cold, clammy, sweaty, and when you touch them, there's that icy coldness of the body parts. Last remedy in this list for gastric distress, I cannot move forward without talking about Epicac. The Epicac is for persistent nausea. So you constantly feel like you're going to throw up and you're not relieved by vomiting. So you keep throwing up and then you keep throwing up again, but the nausea does not relent. So there's a lot of retching. There may be colic around the umbilicus. The stool may be green with white mucus, blood. It may be fermented, foamy, like frothy molasses. It's the autumnal dysentery where there are cold nights that follow the hot days. And this, the keynote for Epicac is the persistent, constant nausea, which is not relieved by vomiting. This is my little wolf. She has been my patient for 8, 9 years now. She's my cutie pie. I just wanted to share her picture. She responds beautifully to homeopathic remedies, and I am so happy that I'm able to help her with homeopathy. So moving on, we're going to talk about some remedies for earache and ear infections. First remedy, again, you'll see a lot of these remedies we are using for multitude of things, which is why having a basic kit is good, because same remedy can be used for fever, the same remedy can be used for earache, the same remedy can be used for headache, toothache. So it's worth your while to invest in like a basic kit. So for earaches, the first remedy to consider is belladonna. Can be with or without fever. It'll come on suddenly, and usually it is the right ear, and you'll see a lot of redness. So the ear will be red, bright red, and the pain will come on very suddenly. The next is pulsatilla. The differentiation between belladonna and pulsatilla is very straightforward. The pulsatilla earache or infection usually comes on after a cold, or it accompanies the cold, which has nasal congestion with bland discharges. So if there is been a lot of nasal congestion, upper respiratory infection with the thick yellow, thick white bland discharge, and then within a day or two of that, if the ear pain ensues, pulsatilla is the remedy for you. And you will also see the emotional state of pulsatilla, which is the whiny, clingy, wanting attention. That state of mind usually will point you again and will confirm the remedy pulsatilla. If you have congestion with clogged sensation, with reduced hearing, with crackling sounds, which is worse from changes in pressure, the remedy is Kalimur. So Kalimur is also the remedy for when you are traveling by air, and when it's time to land and the plane starts its descent, and that causes that change in pressure causes a lot of pain. Kalimur is the remedy for that. If you've been swimming, the remedy for swimmers, your first choice is pulsatilla, and the next choice is Kalimur. So if there is that clogged sensation in the ear with reduced hearing and congestion, the Kalimur will help those symptoms. If there are splinter-like pains with sensitivity to or ailments from being exposed to the cold air with discharge coming out of the ear, your remedy is Heparsol. And then the last remedy in this list is Merc-Sol. We talked about Merc-Sol in diarrhea, where there is bad breath, mucus, and or blood in the stool. Merc-Sol is the remedy for ear infections and ear pains as well if there is a lot of sensitivity to heat or cold with swollen glands. And remember the bad breath. The bad breath is the clincher. So bad breath, drooling, swollen glands with sensitivity to heat and cold with a ear infection or ear pain, consider Merc-Sol. Now going into remedies for sleep issues and continuing with some more remedies for teething. So chamomilla. So chamomilla, you'll see it's one of like the top remedies for infants and children. We've talked about chamomilla in teething, and the only thing that seems to settle them temporarily is when they're being carried or rocked hard. They will scream if you try to put them down. They will clench their fists, they'll stiffen the body, and they'll arch it backwards. They're loud, and their screaming can drive parents to distraction. So it's an important remedy for insomnia in babies. It's an important remedy for teething. It's an important remedy for gastric distress. It's an important remedy for colic, you name it. If the symptoms fit where they want to be carried and that's the only thing that suits them temporarily, chamomilla is your remedy. Any tantrum, really, chamomilla. The next remedy is Sina. Sina is the remedy for irritability with variable appetite, grinding of teeth to the point of convulsions, with screams, with jerkings of hands and feet. They want to be rocked like chamomilla, but you cannot pacify them. So they want one thing, you give it to them, next minute they want something else. So at least with chamomilla, once you give them what they want, it will pacify them for a bit. But with Sina, they are not pacified. They could become cross to the point where they don't want to be touched, caressed, or carried. They desire many things, but they will reject it once they are offered. And it's also a remedy for worms, which is why the grinding of teeth comes along with that. I've used Sina with success even for coughs. So if there are spasmodic coughs with grinding of teeth and you think that they have worms, or if the parents have confirmed that they saw worms in the stool, consider Sina. The next remedy is Calcarea phos. It's one of the important remedies for growing pains. The child can be peevish, forgetful, wants to go somewhere. It's indicated when the dentition is tardy and all troubles during that period where the bones are not, there is non-union of fractured bones, anemia, wasting, the peevish by nature, flabby, feeble digestion, cold extremities. All of this will point you to Calcarea phos. And then with sleep issues, I can't like not mention cocculus indicus. Cocculus indicus is for the parent who has stayed up late at night taking care of the infant and is finding it difficult to go back to sleep because of the sleep deprivation. Consider cocculus indicus. And cocculus indicus is also a remedy for jet lag and motion sickness. So if you have a child that gets sick in the car, as soon as you get in, they start crying, they're nauseous, they're uncomfortable. Cocculus indicus is the remedy for them. Coffee or cruda, sleeplessness from worries, anticipation, or can't fall asleep because of an overactive mind. Consider coffee or cruda. And then, of course, Khali Foss. It's an indispensable remedy for insomnia. It is for physical and mental fatigue or exhaustion from overexertion with sleeplessness, for being overwhelmed, and it's the remedy for caregivers. So again, if you are up at late at night taking care of children or just doing stuff, because I heard this at one of the workshops last week that a lot of the moms stay up at night because that's the only me time they get. They're taking care of the children all day, and so once the children have fallen asleep, they like to stay up and watch TV or catch up on emails or catch up on their text messages, and that's their me time. And then if you've stayed up and find it difficult to go to sleep because now you can't like unwind, Kali Foss is the remedy for you. So now I'm going to go over remedies for colds, coughs, fevers, sore throats. Um, Again, a lot of these remedies we've already talked about, so it's going to be reviewing so that you won't forget this. First 12 to 24 hours, aconite, belladonna, and you have the option of using ferrum phos, which is at the beginning of the cold, and then follow up with other remedies based on the direction the cold is headed. So belladonna is used for sore throats, fevers, dry spasmodic coughs, as well as can be ferrum phos. They're very close in symptoms, and I've reached for the other if the first one doesn't work. And Dr. Robin Murphy has said that ferrum phos is a great option when symptoms are not very clear. Both these remedies, ferrum phos and belladonna, have the redness, throbbing congestion. Ferrum phos may have bleeding, and belladonna has the oversensitivity to noise, light. They may have glassy eyes, cold hands and feet, but the face and the body will be hot. Now, when would you choose aconite versus belladonna? Belladonna and ferrum phos very similar in their presentation, so you could choose one over the other. But how can you differentiate between when to use aconite and when to use belladonna? It's a very clear distinction. With aconite, usually you will have the runny nose and like a dry cough, whereas with belladonna, you may have a headache and a sore throat or throat pain. So there's a differentiation between trying to pick because both of them have the ailments from exposure to cold. Now we're going to choose based on, so we've started with the aconite or the belladonna, and now we're going to follow this cold to see what symptoms come up, and that'll help us choose a remedy. So I'm going to start with what if flu-like symptoms are predominant. So when you say flu-like symptoms, it's restlessness, body ache, fever, those symptoms. So the first remedy to consider for flu-like symptoms is bryonia. Bryonia, the indication is if there's a dry cough with pain in the chest or pain in the head when coughing, and which is worse in a warm room. And the person feels very thirsty, is grumpy, irritable, wants to be left alone, and there may be queasiness, nausea, and constipation. So the stomach flu kind of symptoms may also be present. And dryness runs through the symptoms of the remedy. So which is why there's the dry cough, there's the thirst, and that will lead you to bryonia. Now, a couple of other remedies for when flu-like symptoms are more predominant. So you started with the aconite and belladonna, and now you're moving on, and your symptoms are leading you to remedies for flu-like symptoms. The first one was bryonia, where there's a lot of dryness, dry cough, increased thirst, they're grumpy, they're irritable. Next remedy is nux vomica. So the nux vomica has irritability with symptoms of indigestion. And there's watery discharge during the day and in the warm room, whereas there's nasal congestion in the night and in open air. So during the day, there is discharge, but in the evening and night, they become congested. Jalsemium, Jalsemium we talked about in the basic kit. It's a remedy for fever with chills, with body ache, droopy eyes, with heaviness in the limbs, and shivers going up and down the spine. Then we have Eupatorium. 25 years, I never got good results with Eupatorium. And then this last year, I've used it with a lot of success with the current illness that's going around. So if in that viral illness, if there is flu-like symptoms with a lot of body ache, as if bones are broken, with high fever, and a thirst for cold drinks even during the chill, with weakness, chills and shivering, Eupatorium has worked. It took it to a good 25 years, but now I've had success with it. So if the symptoms are of severe body pain, as if the bones are broken with fever and chills, Eupatorium is your remedy. Then we have Rustox. Rustox is for flu-like symptoms, and there'll be ailments from exposure to cold, damp weather. The keynote is the restlessness with aching and stiffness in joints. And remember, we talked about Rustox with injuries, that the first motion is painful, but once they start moving, they actually feel better. Then we have Merksol. We talked about Merksol already for diarrhea, which has mucus and or blood, and they have it's also for earache or ear infection when there is again bad breath and there is the glands are swollen. So if Merksol is indicated for your flu-like symptoms, you'll have that painful sore throat. There may be deposits on the tonsils, palate, throat. There'll be fever with offensive perspiration, which is not giving much relief, and the offensive breath. So if you have the offensive breath, you really can't go wrong with using Merksol. Offensive breath, excess salivation, drooling with extreme thirst, Merksol is your remedy. And then we have arnica. Who would think of using arnica for flu-like symptoms? But if the symptoms match, the arnica will do the trick. It's the most well-known remedy for bumps and bruises, but it can be used successfully for a fever with body ache, where the head and the upper body are hot, but the limbs are cold. So the keynote for using arnica is that the head and the upper part of your body will be hot, whereas the limbs are going to be cold. So next we're going to move on to if cough symptoms are predominant. So if cough symptoms are predominant, and I'm going to make another presentation just on coughs, because I know a lot of our families struggle with recognizing the cough. So just hang in there, that video is coming soon. If the cough symptoms are predominant, then you have to figure out, what does the cough sound like? Is the cough croupy? If yes, then consider aconite, heiper, and spongia. And I'm going to go into a little bit detail in a couple of minutes. If the cough is the cough, once you've decided if it's croupy, consider aconite, heiper, or spongia. Then you got to figure out, is the cough coming from the throat or is it coming from the lungs? Is the cough wet? Is it dry? Is it spasmodic? If the cough is coming from the throat, consider Rumex, Hepersal, Spongia, Casticum, Calibacomicum. If it's deeper and you can hear it's coming from the lungs, then consider Pulsatilla, Bryonia, Phosphorus, Casticum, Antimtar, and Epicap. And the repertory is always available. The repertory is your dictionary of symptoms, and you can look for keynotes. And of course, your homeopath is always available if you need to contact them. To help you find the correct homeopathic remedy for cough by listening to the sound, you can go to my YouTube channel. I have 40 different coughs that I have documented over the time as families have sent me coughs of themselves or their children. And so you can listen to those coughs and familiarize yourself with the most common ones. For the cough, we choose a remedy based on the totality of symptoms, the cough sound, whether there's chest congestion, is the cough upper or lower respiratory, Are there nasal symptoms? And of course, we look at the demeanor of the patient or the child. Again, here is Miranda's complete homeopathy handbook, safe and effective ways to treat fevers, coughs, colds, sore throat, childhood ailments, food poisoning, flu, the wide range of everyday complaints. So this is another book that I highly recommend to have on hand if you would like, if you're the kind of person who needs to have a physical book that they can refer to. And then on the right, you can see the Homeopathy Today magazine from the National Center for Homeopathy. Amazing magazine. It comes out every quarter, so 4 magazines in the year that you get with your membership. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to tell you how you can become a member if you're not a member already. And then, of course, you can see my kit from of Roy and Company remedies. All my staples are in there: belladonna, bryonia, aconite, Hepersalve, Frustox, Arsenicum alb, Gelsemium, Oscillococcinum, all of them are in there. Now continuing with the throats. So if the congestion is throaty and you can hear that loose throaty cough with feeling as if something is stuck in the throat and you're constantly having to clear it, and when you cough you can hear that frog in the throat like a loose phlegm, to remedies Hepersalve. On the other hand, if you hear a dry hacking cough from the throat, the Spongia tosta will be your remedy. So Boni Hussain, hundreds of years back, used to made these croup powders which were sold over the counter in pharmacies. And I'm going to talk a little bit about them in a minute once I complete these other remedies. So phosphorus. Phosphorus is the remedy for a dry, tickling, tight cough which can be exhausting. The cough becomes worse on laughing, talking, eating. The person eating phosphorus is very chilly and yet has a thirst for ice cold drinks. They feel worse in open air, or they feel worse when they're going from cold to a warm room. Next remedy is antim tart. Antim tart has a great rattling of mucus in the chest, which they find difficult to bring up. So the difference between antim tart and Hepersalve is that with Hepersalve, you're hearing the loose phlegm in the throat, whereas with antim tart, you're hearing the loose phlegm in the chest. Now, if you hear a deep, hollow cough with wheezing, the remedy is Epicac. And if you remember, we had talked about Epicac for colic, for persistent nausea, which is not better by vomiting. So Epicac is also a remedy for that deep, hollow, wheezy cough. And then Sambucus niger, which is elderberry. A lot of our families use elderberry through the winter season, fall and winter season, to boost your immunity. Sambucus niger is the potentized version of the elderberry, and the specific modality that will point you to Sambucus is that the cough is aggravated on lying down. So the child can get congested or can start having the cough when they lie down. So there may not be much discharge. They have what is called dry snuffles, and the cough comes on as soon as the baby is put down for a nap or the baby tries to sleep in the night. And they get congested and they can't breathe as soon as they're laid down. Then you have Rumex. So Rumex has this dry, incessant cough, which is triggered by breathing in cold air. Think about a person that's walking in the city streets during the thick of winter. So it's triggered by breathing in cold air, which brings on a scratchy throat with a tickling sensation above the sternum, right between the collarbones. And they are worst uncovering. Then you have Causticum. Causticum is for the dry, raw, hoarse cough. And they can have aphonia, which is loss of voice. The other remedy for loss of voice is Spongia. And the difference in the cough is the Spongia is just a dry, hacky cough. And there may be loss of voice, but with the person eating Causticum has a more raw, painful cough. The chest seems full of mucus, and the person eating Causticum feels, if only I could cough a little deeper, I could get the mucus out. And again, this is missing in Spongia. Spongia is a completely dry cough. There's no feeling of any mucus stuck. So if you feel like the mucus is stuck in your throat, you need Hepersalve. If you feel like you have mucus stuck in your chest and if only you could like cough out and get this mucus out, it's causticum. If you're hearing that loose, rattly cough with the phlegm in the chest, antimtart. So you see how each of the remedies has a clear-cut keynote which differentiates one from the other. Causticum, like phosphorus, likes the ice-cold water, but they have this inability to expectorate. They are unable to bring out the mucus. They just seem to keep coughing in the hope that they can bring the phlegm out. So this is the kind of videos I get. So this is the kind of videos I get throughout the day, and more so now with the pandemic where I'm not able to see people in person. So I'm sent videos, and this is still my go-to video. If I'm having a bad day, I play this. I hope it brings a smile to your face too.
Molly, say hi, Dr. Yashi.
Hi, Dr. Washi.
I'm losing my voice.
I'm using my voice.
What should I take?
What can take?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now everyone say bye-bye.
Bye.
So a quick review of Boning Hussein's group powders. So these group powders were sold, like I said, in the early days when homeopathy was new. And the three remedies that constitute the Boning Hussein's group powders are aconite, spongia, and hepersulf. So they would give out 5 group powders, 1 dose of aconite and 2 doses of spongia and 2 doses of hepersulf. So they were told to take 1 dose of aconite, follow it up with spongia, hepersulf. So that's what constituted the 5 Boning Hussein's 5 group powders. I don't give them out like that, but I recommend that you pick based on what the cough is sounding like if your child has the group. So give aconite or belladonna, not both. Those are the 2 remedies that we always consider in the first 12 to 24 hours. And you remember we differentiated that with aconite, there is that you'll have that barky seal kind of a sound from the cough. And as I said, I'm going to make a separate presentation on the cough video on the different coughs, and I'll put in the sounds in that so you can actually hear what a barky seal cough sounds like that needs aconite. So you can start with aconite or belladonna based on the symptoms. So if you have that barky seal kind of a cough with a slight runny nose, consider aconite. If it's more like a sore throat or headache, fever, consider belladonna. So start with either aconite or belladonna in the first 12 to 24 hours. If it's a dry, hacky cough with hoarseness, consider spongia. If it's a loose, wet, throaty, phlegmy cough, consider hepersulf. You can even alternate these 2 remedies because I hear it all the time. The cough sound is changing. It sounds hacky one point and it sounds phlegmy at the other time. So based on the cough, you can give. So if the cough sounds hacky, you can give spongia. If the cough sounds hacky again, give spongia. If the cough now is sounding throaty, phlegmy, you can give hepersulf. So these 2 remedies can be alternated based on what you're hearing. Now, if it is more dry, hacky, and then spasmodic, you can alternate with throat pain, you can alternate belladonna and spongia. Spongia and hepersulf are complementary. Belladonna and hepersulf are complementary. Spongia and belladonna are complementary. And the spongia follows the belladonna and aconite well. And remember for that if you have the dry, teasing cough at night, which is spasmodic, but not hacky, the remedy is belladonna. So you can see that you can use more than one remedy at a time if the remedies are complementary, and you can switch between these remedies if the symptoms are ever changing or if the cough sound is changing. So you don't have to stick to one remedy. You always follow the symptoms because the symptoms are the way the body is telling you what is wrong, and you want to match those symptoms to the right remedy. Aconite, the first of the Bonnie Hussein's group powders. This we talked about aconite for colds, the beginning of colds. We talked about aconite as being a part of my basic kit. This can stop oncoming colds. Taken at the very first sign of a runny nose or chills, it can prevent the cold and the respiratory complaints from developing. Hepersulf. Both aconite, hepersulf, as well as belladonna have ailments from becoming cold. So with the weather becoming colder, I would stock up on, at the minimum, aconite, hepersulf, spongia. For oversensitive types who get sick after exposure to cold winter winds, hepersulf can provide relief. They have that feeling of something stuck in the throat, the loose, throaty, barky phlegm, and as if a splinter is stuck in the throat. So this is the remedy that I used a lot with Arnav. He used to bypass the aconite stage, meaning he would be out playing without a jacket in the evening. He would come back home and he would bypass that whole runny nose, sore throat, aconite belladonna stage. And then in the morning when he woke up, I would hear straight away that loose throaty phlegm in his cough. And I would have to straight go to hepersulf. I would give him a dose or two before he went to school, and then I would pop a couple of pellets in his water bottle. So if he was coughing at school, he knew to drink a sip or two from that water. And usually when he got home, he was totally fine. Spongia. So spongia is the most effective remedy for complaints of the respiratory tract. And the keynote is the dry, barky cough with hoarseness, with the tickle in the throat, and they feel better with warm drinks. And again, I'm going to make the video on the coughs in which I'll share all the cough sounds. So now we're going to talk about, we've talked about if flu-like symptoms are predominant. We've talked about if cough is more predominant. Now I'm going to go over what if the cold or the sinus symptoms are more predominant. First remedy to consider is pulsatilla. Pulsatilla is, the keynote for pulsatilla is that thick, bland, yellowish, whitish discharge with nasal congestion and a very tight, congested chest. So you could have both the nasal congestion and the chest congestion, or you could have just nasal congestion or just chest congestion as well. They feel worse in a warm room and they feel better in open air. So they want the windows open. And the alternate nostrils will get blocked and the eyes can get glued shut from the discharge. So that discharge, which is nasal, may also be there in the nose and there in the eyes, and the eyes can get glued shut. In the morning, they may wake up with that, crust around the eyes. If there is profuse egg white like nasal discharge, which is worse in open air, with nasal blockage, with frequent sneezing and dry cracked lips, or cold sores or fever blisters, consider Natramune. And they also feel very chilly and they like to cover up. If there is violent sneezing with a discharge which can be drawn into threads, it's a colorful discharge which you can literally draw into threads, your remedy is Kali bichromicum. Then, of course, there's arsenicum alb. We've talked about arsenicum alb for diarrhea, vomiting, food poisoning. We've talked about arsenicum alb in our basic kit. The arsenicum alb is your remedy for sneezing with flu-like symptoms, anxiety, lethargy, with acrid nasal discharge and acrid tears. And remember, they have that thirst for small sips of water. And we talked about giving it for food poisoning, a dose after any diarrhea or vomiting. Arsenicum alb is my remedy because I get this cold once or twice a year, where my sneezes, according to my son, can stop a tsunami in its tracks. The sneeze, according to him, will scare any robbers or intruders away. So, I remember Mahesh was traveling and I told Arnav that he should be back home by 11 because I don't want to be alone at home. And he was like, Mom, just sneeze and they'll be gone. We don't have anything to worry about. Next remedy, if your cold or sinus symptoms are predominant is Allium cepa. The Allium cepa is sourced from the onion, has the red, watery eyes with the profuse, bland tears. So remember, arsenicum has burning tears and has burning or acrid nasal discharge. Allium cepa has the red, watery eyes and the profuse, bland tears, but the discharge from the nose is acrid. Then you have euphrasia, which is the exact opposite, where the tears are burning and the discharge from the nose is bland. And they also have the sneezing, tickling, and they're worse in open air. So these three remedies, arsenicum, Allium cepa, and euphrasia, both have sinus symptoms where they have discharge from the eyes as well as they have discharge from the nose. So remember, with euphrasia, the discharge from the eyes is burning, but the nasal discharge is bland. With Allium cepa, the eyes discharge or the watering is bland, but the nasal discharge will cause redness around the nose. Whereas with arsenicum alb, both the tears as well as the discharge from the nose is acrid. So the eyes will be burning as well as the area around the nose will become red. Then I'm going to talk about two last remedies which are not exactly for sinus symptoms, but I like to put them in here because Khalifos is the remedy for mental, physical exhaustion after the illness. It's also for the caregiver who's tending to the sick. So if you're getting tired because you're taking care of sick people, Khalifos is the remedy you should be taking. And then China, lastly, that is the remedy that helps a person recuperate from the illness. So post-illness, if there is weakness from the loss of fluids, whether it is from diarrhea, vomiting, or whether it is from, you've lost it because you have the nasal discharge, or, you've brought out a lot of phlegm, or you've had a lot of perspiration. So to recuperate from that weakness, from loss of fluids, China or Syncona officinalis, couple of doses will help you get back your energy as well as bring your appetite. So I can't end without talking about some remedies for emotional well-being. So as parents, when you're taking care of your children, these remedies can be used by parents as well as these remedies can be given to children and teenagers. Ignatia, I've talked about this remedy many times in my previous other presentations. It's the remedy for hypersensitivity to things that are said that someone perceives as hurtful. So if there is drama, hysteria, sadness, tears, upset that is felt by you or your child, this is the remedy for you. So when children are playing, oh, this one said this to me, that one said this to me, you don't love me anymore, any of those things, Ignatia is the remedy for you or for your child. Then you have Natrimur. Natrimur is the remedy for person that broods and cannot move past. It's also the remedy usually for the older child, where they are very straightforward, they are very particular about everything, and then they become stressed. So these are usually children who suck their thumbs, bite nails, and the keynote for needing Natrimur, which has been sourced from the common salt, is that these people have a craving for more salt. So they like potato chips, they like the highly seasoned salty foods. Then you have the Nux vomica. Nux vomicas are the type A's, very irritable, very sensitive to all impressions. If there is dietary indiscretions, jet lag, hangovers, consider Nux vomica. For that occasional indigestion, again, Nux vomica. Argentum nitricum is a remedy for claustrophobia. This was a remedy that I had suggested for people who are being affected by having to wear the mask for extended periods of time. There is nervousness, restlessness, and the keynote for Argentum nitricum is the craving for sweets. And then you have the pulsatilla. We talked about pulsatilla for that thick, bland discharge when you have the cold. Pulsatilla is also the remedy for the moodiness, timidity, irresolution, weeping easily for no reason, the fears, don't want to be alone. They love sympathy. They are people pleasers. They like the fuss and the caresses. They can get discouraged very easily. They have a morbid fear of the opposite sex. I've used this remedy with success when I've heard of little girls who are afraid of men, are afraid of guys, are afraid of a male teacher. This is the remedy that has helped them get over that. They are very highly emotional. People needing Pulsatilla can be uh, very doormat kind of a personality where they will do anything to please you. They're constantly looking for approval from you. And then you have sepia. I have not seen sepia in children and infants, but I've seen sepia needed by the mother. So, if you are going through that time of the month, it's the remedy for PMS. If you have too much on your plate, not much help, and then you get very cranky and irritable, the remedy for you is sepia. And then you have lachesis. So the lachesis I have used, it's actually the remedy for perimenopause and menopause, but I have used it in households where there are multiple children and there is that jealousy that arises, that sibling rivalry. I've used lachesis with success over there. So one of the keynotes for lachesis is the loquacity, the love to talk. We can't stop talking. Um, and the lachesis really helps those people. So I always remind people to find time for yourself, to find time to do whatever gives you joy in your life. This picture was taken in Arizona. I love going to my annual National Center for Homeopathy's conference. Every year I've been going for since 2015. And this was taken at the end of the conference on the day we were supposed to fly out. And this is just a special memory for me, and I thought I would share it with you guys. Continuing with some of the other remedies for emotional well-being. Again, we've already talked about so many of them, so this is just a very quick recap review. Arsenicum alb. Arsenicum alb is the remedy for you if you are, for the lack of a better word, a perfectionist, where you like things to be in order, everything has to be right, you're capricious, and that if things are not in their place, that upsets you. I want to share this this story about me and Arnav. So, whenever he says he wants to leave the house, I always ask to check to see if his room is clean. And, he will always say, Mom, it's not to your standard. So I had told him about this remedy arsenicum, and he said to me once, Mom, why don't you take a dose before you come look at my room? Just to humor him, I took the arsenicum alb about 15 minutes before I was supposed to go check his room. And believe it or not, I was a little bit not as upset, about his room. It was not exactly the way I usually like it, but I didn't lose it like I normally do. So now he always tells me to take the arsenicum before I come check his room. The next remedy is jalsemium. Jalsemium is for any anticipatory anxiety, apprehension. We talked about jalsemium for the flu, where there is flu-like symptoms when there is chills. So any fever with chills, consider jalsemium. For any anticipatory anxiety before an exam, before an event, before travel, for stage fright, before going for a procedure like a dental procedure, anything, you can use jalsemium before that. We've already talked about bryonia again, for flu-like symptoms where everything is very dry, painful, increased thirst. The mental state of a person eating bryonia is that of a grumpy bear, extremely irritable and feel like snapping at everyone. So this exceedingly irritable, the other remedy we talked about was sepia. So the big difference between sepia and bryonia is that sepia is usually when it's more hormonal, when you're either PMSing or you're having that hormonal up or down. Whereas with bryonia, there seems to be no reason. If you're just irritable for no reason, the remedy for you is bryonia. And then we have phosphorus. Phosphorus is the remedy for the empath. They are very, very sensitive and susceptible to all external impressions, physical as well as emotional. So, to light, sound, odors, touch, electrical changes, thunderstorms, they're clairvoyant and just very super sensitive to everything. They are very affected by everything that is happening around them. These are the people who are happy-go-lucky most of the time, and but they can crash also very easily. So it's like a roller coaster where they are very happy, they're affected by the happiness around them, but they could be easily affected if somebody says something or something negative happens around them. They tend to take on everybody else's energy, and they tend to be affected by what is happening to other people even if it doesn't involve them. And then you have the rescue remedy. So the rescue remedy is a bark flower combination remedy. If you don't know which one to use, because I've talked about so many remedies, and if you're finding it difficult to narrow down, this is a remedy to consider starting with. So if you can't narrow down to a specific remedy, a couple of doses of this rescue remedy in any kind of acute emotional situation with you or your child will have that calming effect while you can figure out the more targeted or the more specific remedy. I cannot end this part about emotional well-being without talking about staphysagria. Staphysagria is a remedy for resentment, anger. I hear it all the time when kids come from school and say, "Oh, the teacher just doesn't like me," or "This is so unfair. I did everything right. My presentation was perfect, and yet she picks on me," or "The other child was talking in the class, and yet I'm the one who gets picked on." So whenever they feel like a situation is unfair and you have anger, indignation, resentment, the remedy is staphysagria. As adults, we can use it if we are angry and we need to bite our tongue to keep the peace. You can add a couple of pellets to your water bottle and keep sipping. So with the holidays around the corner, make staphysagria your best friend right now. So that was a lot of information. Use that as a starting point. And then where can I learn more? How can I learn more? So there's a treasure trove of information and informational links on my website, on my blog, on my YouTube channel. So I've been doing this for 26 years now, and I'm doing my best to consolidate all that information and make it available to all of you so you can put it to good use. Join a local homeopathic study group, attend a workshop, ask questions, be an informed patient, take control of your and your family's health. Like my Think Homeopathy First Facebook page, like the National Center for Homeopathy's Facebook page. You can also join my hashtag paid forward Think Homeopathy First group by supporting the National Center of Homeopathy with your membership at $75 for the year, which is nothing for all the benefits that you'll get out of that membership. And you can email me at yashi@yahoo.com for the NCH discount code that will get you $10 off that membership. Some books that I recommend, I already talked about Miranda Castro's Homeopathy and Pregnancy, Birth, Baby's First Year, Edward Shaw's The American Institute of Homeopathic Handbook for Parents. Then you have Dana Allman and Stephen Cummings' Everybody's Guide to Homeopathic Medicines. Again, Dana Allman's Homeopathic Medicine for Children and Infants. And then Robert Ullman and Judith Reichberg Ullman's Homeopathic Self-Care, Quick and Easy Guide for the Whole Family. If you get the National Center for Homeopathy's membership, you get Dana Ullman's course free with it on how to use a basic kit. You also get 3 months free of the Homeopathic House Call, which is an amazing software where you throw in symptoms and it will ask you questions to get the modalities from you, and it'll just throw remedies at you. So that's again an amazing resource, the National Center for Homeopathy. And that membership will give you those benefits as well as so many other benefits. Again, websites that I trust, National Center for Homeopathy. This is Homeopathy in the Nursery by Margaret Tyler. I will put all of these links below. I love Dr. Paul Thomas. He's a pediatrician with a holistic approach, and he has a channel where he has gone over so many of the childhood ailments in such detail. So whether it's, how do you deal with croup, how to deal with fever, all the different rashes, everything is on his channel. And so I highly recommend that you can subscribe to the channel and look him up. And then you have these other links. Again, I'll put all of these in the description box below. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. I know it was long. It's a lot of information to digest. I hope for a lot of you it was a review, those who have been with me for a long time. And for those who are just starting this journey, welcome to our community. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. Ask questions, email me, find me on Facebook. And like I say, think homeopathy first and pay it forward by helping as many people as you possibly can. Thank you again. Have a blessed day.